Everybody, 5:30. I will call the meeting to order. Can everybody hear me, including those who are on link? Yes, that's okay. Everybody all right? Good. Thank you for joining us this evening. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce everybody who's here this evening. We have physically present Peter Dillon, who is the superintendent of Berkshire Hills Regional School District. Jason St. Peter is the chair of the building committee. Stephen Boyd is also a member of the building committee. And this is a meeting that was arranged with the Town of Stockbridge Finance Committee. We have Rich Bradway, a member of our committee, Georgia Marsden, a member of our committee, Jim Balfance, member of our committee, Diane Roos, a member of our committee, and I'm Jay Bykovsky. And we should have one or two additional people joining us this evening. The principal purpose of this meeting this evening will be an information session to be presented by representative of the school district regarding Monument Mountain High School and the status of that project. And before we get into that specifically, I would like to, this is an official meeting of the Finance Committee, Stockbridge Finance Committee. We've got to approve a set of minutes. And we have circulated the minutes of September 26th, and Georgia has made some editorial comments to my artwork, which is much appreciated. My wife missed it, Georgia. So can we? Are there any comments from any members of the committee regarding those minutes? There being none, can we have a motion to approve?
I approve with the corrections.
Okay, with the corrections, and Diana second. All in favor?
Right.
Okay, you were not present. Okay, at this point, I would call upon Stephen.
I'll get you started.
Stephen, you want to introduce your players as to participation, what they're going to do this evening?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Bykovsky, members of the Finance Committee. We appreciate your time tonight. We know you have busy schedules, and so we aim to introduce ourselves and the school building project, as Jay mentioned, in a manner of slides that can't possibly touch all of the detail that has gone on in the way of due diligence and in the way of the status of the project to date. Although we certainly want to provide you enough of an overview to ask for your help and continued partnership as we go forward. We're here tonight because a little under a year from now, this community will need to make a decision about the yes or no status of the school and make a decision that will have a long-term impact on our community. We take our responsibility as members of the school building committee very seriously in that regard. And we are here in front of you because we know that the members of Stockbridge, the community members of Stockbridge, view your acumen and fiduciary responsibilities in an important and leadership way as well.
Thank you.
So we're here asking for your engagement and ongoing dialogue in what we hope will be the start of a process so that we can continue to go through and update you as we think about making prudent decisions on behalf of the community at large. I mentioned that we're going to try to give you an overview of the information. If you are someone who wants a tremendous amount of detail and to look at every single part of the work that has been done, I encourage you to look out at the school building project website, which will provide links to you on. We also are having a community outreach meeting on Monday night at the high school at 6:30, where we will provide at 6. Thank you, Peter. Where we'll provide more information on some of the work that's been done and the decisions that the school building committee is making so far. So again, we're here because we want your help and your support and your partnership as we go forward in the decisions that we have to make over the course of the next year. How does that sound to you guys? Okay, great. Thanks so much. So I'm going to hand it over to Jason St. Peter, as you mentioned, chair of the building.
Great, yeah, thanks again for having us. Really appreciate it. Jason St. Peter from Stockbridge, member of the school committee, and I'm chair of the Monument Building Project. I've been in the school committee for 10 years. I'm going to give just a really brief background as to how we got to this point, and then I'm going to hand it off to Donna Danisco, who's the lead architect on the project from Danisco Associates. It's going to be online and go through a slide presentation. So Monument, it was opened in 1968. Planning started in the late 50s, early 60s, as far as the educational vision and the actual structural planning of the school. Like most of the schools built in that time period, it's kind of come to the end, both from an educational standpoint as well as physically, without any significant upgrades to the building. The building has been really well taken care of. That's why we're still in it now, especially compared to a lot of other buildings. We're one of the last buildings in the county that was built during that time period to not have a major renovation or a new build. In Central Berkshire District, Wacona is brand new, Pittsfield, Taconix brand new. Mount Greylock just finished a few years ago, a complete renovation and significant addition. So again, this is something that even before my time in the school committee 15 years ago, it was recognized that something needed to be done for the future of the building, both physically and educationally. And so that brings us to now, the here and now. There's been, previous votes on the issue that didn't go through. We've been in line for the last 10 years to partner with the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which provides both their expertise as well as their financial support to the vast majority of public school buildings in the state. So they're going to partner with us if we do decide when we pick a plan, over $50 million contribution. This is our last probably realistic chance. They're very competitive program. We were one of a small minority to get in. And again, this being our third vote in the last 12 years, if we don't get in now, we probably never will. The competition has increased and they want to support communities that are going to approve of a district, a new school. So
I missed you one point. It was the state contribution would be 50 million.
over
toward the
$50 million.
project.
I don't have the exact specifics. She'll go into it, and she'll go into more detail as to
Thank you.
what needs to be fixed on the current school or the upgrade. So this is, really our last realistic chance of taking advantage of that money, this program. So with that, I'm going to actually pass it to Donna, and she's going to kind of tell you where we are now and what the step is going forward.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. Just want to make sure everyone can see the screen and see my face if you care to. I think I was covering or was covered the other day. So thank you. And just wanted to also give a huge shout out to all of the building committee members. It ranges from obviously the district. We have teachers involved. We have superintendent, the principal. We have other community members that are involved in the trades to give great oversight to make sure that the decisions from a construction perspective, et cetera, are weighed and balanced and made sure that we're making the right decisions, as well as just local community members that have a vested interest in this project. As Jason mentioned, my name is Donna Danisco, president of Danisco Design. With me tonight is John Benzinger. He's with Skanska, our owner's project manager. And then Danisco is partnered with William Rahn Associates, who has also done work in the Berkshires as well. And we're a great team and really excited about this project. As Jason mentioned, the MSBA is probably your most important partner in this project. MSBA is a quasi-state agency that funds public schools, K through 12, for projects that are educationally appropriate, flexible, sustainable, and cost-effective. As Jason mentioned, it's an extremely competitive process. It's getting more competitive. Monument Mountain was one of 17 schools selected out of 58 in 2021, and the submissions have been increasing since that time. But the important part is MSBA is not in the business to fix buildings or build buildings. It's their purpose is to provide and support the education of students. They have a really prescriptive process, and it takes a little bit longer, but we actually value the effort that goes into it. They want to make sure that all options are evaluated and considered before you arrive at a preferred solution. So with that, we are required to look at 3 different options. One is just a code upgrade or repair only, doesn't impact or improve the quality of education in your building, but they want to use this as a benchmark is if you did nothing else, how much would it cost just to bring the building up to code and maintain your building? Option 2 is looking at a renovation and addition, and that works well for communities such as Mount Greylock, and in other instances, it just doesn't prove out. And then the third option is looking at new construction. But again, most importantly, the educational program must be achieved through any solution. And within the Monument Mountain Regional High School, you have incredibly strong academic programs, a wide range of career tech programs, as well as your commitment to the arts and other opportunities for every student. So we have spent a lot of time evaluating and making sure that all of the options we're putting forward to you tonight and to the community is that they all will meet your educational programs. Back in February, when we began, we started looking at many locations to place a new school on the existing Monument Mountain site. We went through an evaluation criteria process, and we arrived at having 3 remaining options to be considered. One is a renovation addition per MSB's prescriptive process. The other one is building a new school in front of the existing building in the hill, into the hillside. And then alternative 3H is building a new school in the parking lot of the existing parking lot. So I'll go really quickly, but feel free to either stop or we can circle back and talk about the options should you have additional questions. So the 2C, which is a renovation addition, includes a single-story addition in front of the existing high school. We want to note that the building will be completely renovated and it will provide all of the appropriate spaces, the height for the career tech programs, science labs, etc. And here's a view of what it could look like. The largest challenge with a renovation addition is that we have no temporary space to relocate the kids during construction. So we have spent a lot of time actually seeing how this could even work with the staff and students in the school. We are showing here that it's probably 8 phases with at minimum 48 months worth of construction. So when you put that in the context of a student's career at the high school, that's their entire career at the high school. Alternative 3E is building a 3-story building in front of the existing school. I don't know if you can, I'll zoom in real quickly. You can see the dotted red line of the existing school. We'll be building a 3-story building in front of the existing school, and it meets all of the educational requirements, the ideal programmatic relationships, and of course, it's much less disruptive than having to do a renovation and addition. A disadvantage here would be possibly you would be displacing the practice field or the use of the practice field during construction, as we would need to utilize that for lay down space. But we anticipate the construction of the new school would be about 24 months. And then we would demolish the existing school and finish the site work for an additional 6 months. Oh, sorry. I had to touch the slide, right? Okay. And this is a view, a bird's eye view of what this option could possibly look like. 3H is actually a 2-story building that will be located in the existing parking lot. Again, the students will remain in the existing school while construction would occur. It has the same construction duration as 3E, 24 months for the construction, with about 6 months to demolish the existing building and finish the site work. Because this option is going to be building in the existing parking lot, the practice field would be offline. We would need to utilize that for temporary parking during construction, as well as some lay down space for the contractor. And here's a view of what that could look like. Again, both options, E and H, will meet your programmatic needs, support your educational program. So really it comes down to what makes the most sense for the community. Increasingly, sustainability is a really important consideration in any project, whether it's a renovation, addition, or new construction. We have incredible energy codes now that we must comply with, but we always try to take it as far as we possibly can. Our goals for any project are to create a net zero energy ready school. Perhaps the solar panels to help offset the energy use aren't included as part of the project, but that will design a building so you can come back afterwards with plug and play with your solar panels afterwards. Other really important considerations from a sustainability perspective include how to reduce carbon emissions, embodied carbon, how to improve your healthy indoor environment utilizing daylight and views. So I'm going to take a little time to talk about the cost slides. I'm wondering if I make it a little bigger, people can see it a little bit better. Maybe if that's a little bit better. So we have gotten cost estimates for the 3 options, plus the code upgrade only option, which is the first column here. And there are various nuances to each of them. So I'll just quickly I'll spend time on this first slide, and then maybe the following slides will go a little quicker. We have determined through the cost estimating exercise that having a renovation addition or even new school utilizing boilers, fossil fuel gas, with a very simple VAV system, which I really don't want to get into the distribution, it's more about the energy, cost more than utilizing an air source heat pump system or a VRF system, which would enable you to not use fossil fuel. So we'll go through the cost. This option here is utilizing a VRF system, which is again an air source system compared to a ground source heat pump system, which is what you currently have at the middle school. But the technology has totally changed, but the mechanics behind it are very similar. So as we go across, you'll see that alternative 1 is just a code upgrade. If you take the construction costs, which is all of the components of the construction, you add soft costs. The soft costs include all of the fees, your furniture, technology, and equipment, all of your lab equipment, your contingencies, your construction contingencies, your owner contingencies. Those are what we consider soft costs. You'll see that our total project cost for a repair only is approximately $114 million. MSBA asks us to get this cost estimate, but they don't participate in it because there's no educational benefit to the community. We have some other opportunities to obtain additional funding, but because we're only upgrading for alternative one, there's no other incentives that we can take advantage of. So your local share for a code upgrade is approximately $114 million. When we look at the other opportunities, utilizing an air source or VRF system, which actually is less expensive than a gas boiler, you'll see that the total construction cost is approximately $126 million. This includes the demolition of the existing building and all of the site work that you've seen as part of the quick design. The soft costs are the same. And then your total project cost is approximately $157 million. So this is where, when Jason said MSBA will reimburse you significant amounts of money, for this option, it's approximately $58 or $59 million. And then Mass Save, which are the local utilities, are also giving communities incentives to utilize non-fossil fuel mechanical systems. So with the VRF system, they'll participate in approximately $435,000 with a local share of approximately $98 million. If you take it a step further and go with the ground source heat pump system, there are significant benefits to it, but everyone recognizes there's an added cost to a ground source heat pump system. So your construction costs are about $10 million more than the VRF system. Your soft costs are slightly higher as well. And your total project costs are somewhere around $169 million. With that, you have your MSBA reimbursement, and the Mass Save, or the utility companies, are actually investing more in utilizing ground source heat pumps. So they actually would contribute somewhere around $1.6 million, with your total local share of somewhere around $108, $109 million. There are other opportunities for incentives. These are not guaranteed until you submit them. The Inflation Reduction Act, if people are familiar with that, there's now a provision for direct pay for non-tax paying entities, which would be you all. And they too are really trying to support ground source heat pump and solar and other very efficient and sustainable features for buildings. Right now, we're projecting that you could save at least $5 million or get a rebate, a check from the government. When does that happen? For about $5 million. But we're not guaranteed that money. So right now, we're saying that's a potential additional savings, but we're keeping that below the line. When we start looking at the two new construction options, they're really very similar in cost. What I'd like to point out again, we're just always using this alternative one code repair just as a baseline per MSBA. And then we'll look at the two different options utilizing air source versus ground source. What we like to point out, though, with new construction, there are potentially two different construction delivery methods that are available that do have some cost implications. CMR, which is also construction manager at risk, brings a construction manager on to the project during design. They're very valuable during renovation addition, as we've just pointed out, that they really lend a keen eye towards phasing and making sure that we're able to coordinate, and the phases and moving the students around really work for the work that they need to accomplish. That also could be an option when we're looking at new construction, but it's not necessary when we're looking at new construction. There's another opportunity for some cost savings if we want to go with a traditional design bid build or just general contractor. And what that is you pre-qualify contractors, and then the lowest responsible bidder gets the job. So there are two different paths for new construction, and we're still considering those. So we're just highlighting that there's opportunities for savings with new construction. So when you take a look at building the school into the hill, the 3-story building, you have a construction cost ranging from 117 million to 126 million. Your soft costs are adjusted based on the construction costs, with the total project costs ranging from 143 million to 153 million. MSBA's percentage is slightly less because the cost is less, but you will receive the benefits from mass save ranging from $435,000, with a local share somewhere around $90 to $99 million. If we take a look at utilizing a ground source, that should be an S, ground source heat pumps system, everything else pretty much remains the same, with the exception that ground source heat pumps is a more expensive way of delivering the energy to the building than a VRF system. Again, similar to what I was just saying, your MSBA reimbursement pretty much remains the same. Your mass save incentives are the same, utilizing ground source heat pumps of about 1.5, 1.6 million, with your local share ranging from 99 to 109 or 110 million dollars. 3H is very similar in cost as the option 3E. It's the same size building. There are slight nuances depending on for the site, but otherwise it's identical as far as cost. And what you'll see here, it's a little more expensive due to some additional site considerations, but taking everything else into consideration, your local share here for a VRF ranges from 91 to $101 million, or a ground source heat pump option would be around 101 to approximately $112 million. So this is then looking at all three options comparatively to each other. This is utilizing, just saying if we go with the VRF system, which is all electric building, so no fossil fuel, and it's the least expensive option. You'll see that if you look across the options from a renovation and addition to new construction, your options range from $89 million for option E up to $101 million for option 3E, utilizing a CM or construction manager delivery method. When we start looking at them comparatively across for the three options, utilizing ground source heat pump solution, again, you'll see the low cost, the lowest cost to the town is, or to the community is approximately 99 million or 100 million, up to approximately 111 or 112 million dollars. Recognizing there's hopefully potentially additional savings utilizing ground source heat pumps with this Inflation Reduction Act incentive. So the question is, okay, if this doesn't pass, what is it going to take to maintain this building that's almost 60 years old, right? You have to continue to maintain and invest in it. You've done a great job, but we did a really detailed evaluation of your entire facility. And we've acknowledged and recognized that there are systems and parts of the building that will need to be addressed, some sooner than later, but that you have to kind of put this into context that you will need to maintain the school going forward. So we took the items that really we have acknowledged need to be replaced or addressed in the near future, whether it's your mechanical system, roof, your windows, your communications and security, flooring. Your construction total averages approximately $59-60 million when you add them all up. Now, you wouldn't take these all on in a single year. That would be impossible to do with the students being in place. But if you address all of these items, there are certain code compliances that you trigger. So if you do work over a 5-year period that exceeds 30% of the assessed value of the building, you then are required to bring the entire building up from an accessibility perspective. MAB is the Mass Architectural Access Board, or all of the accessibility codes per Massachusetts law. That is estimated to be approximately $7.4 million. In addition, you're grandfathered in. Code requires us now to have a sprinkler system, but you're grandfathered in. It wasn't in effect when the building was built, but again, the state states that if the total cost of your work over a 5-year period is greater than 33% of the assessed value, you now have to put in new sprinklers or an entire sprinkler system. So when you look at it in its entirety, it's approximately a $71 million investment in your existing school. And the approximate project cost, you still have those soft costs you need: construction, design, oversight, contingencies, et cetera, is somewhere around $90 million. So just like your home or your car, as it ages, you do need to invest in it and to maintain it and make it a viable school for the next generations to come. So where we are is big shout out to come to the community information meeting on Monday night, November 25th. We're really seeking input. We have 3 viable options that the school building committee must decide on which one they want to select as the preferred solution to bring to the next phase of the project. And that's going to occur on December 4th. So they're really seeking the community's input as to what they feel is the right solution for Monument Mountain. Once we have the preferred solution from the building committee, we have to put together what's called a preferred schematic report to submit to MSBA for their approval. And that will be on December 17th. And then we have to submit this report to the MSBA for their review and approval as well. Once we have a preferred solution, we will enter into schematic design. We'll really hone in on the preferred solution. We'll get into a lot more detail than what you're seeing in these images that we're showing you here. We want to wrap up schematic design in June. We'll have a final cost on what the actual cost is of the project. We will know sometime in July what MSBA's final contribution is for the project. And then the goal is to seek a district vote or community vote in the fall of 2025. And just another shout out for this information section. But that's the entire presentation. So we hopefully was probably a little overwhelming, but feel free to ask any questions you have.
Donna, the first point I would ask before I open this up to the committee is it would be very helpful for us to have copies of these alternatives, okay? So we could look at them, look at the details of them. And obviously that's an important step. I mean, you know this by rote. We need to look at it and study it a little bit.
So Don, I can send it to me, I'll send it to you, and then you can distribute it to everyone.
Okay, and at this point, I'd like to open it up. Ed, please.
Quick question. I thought that there was a Massachusetts ruling that all new power systems had to be electric, that fossil fuels were being phased out. Am I misunderstanding that? I mean, can we have a fossil fuel system?
Yes, yes, they have not ruled that out. There's 3 levels now for code compliance. One is just the baseline. We are allowed to utilize gas boilers, and the systems inside the building, we still have to meet certain code requirements, but we are allowed to continue to utilize gas. As you can see, there are reasons not to, but if you are a stretch code community, which we believe you are, where you're still allowed to, but you have to meet certain criteria from a code perspective, from an energy perspective. If you're an opt-in stretch code community, which is relatively new, and I don't believe that the 3 communities, or I guess in this case it would be Great Barrington, has voted in to be an opt-in stretch code community. If you voted to be a opt-in stretch code, that's where it's an all electric. You're mandating any new construction is all electric.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Rich?
I've got a bunch of questions, but I don't want to suck up the meeting, but I'll try. They're all quick, easy, yes, no kind of questions.
Otherwise, I mean, this is an information session. We're gonna have to get into this.
Sure. No, some of these
Go
are
ahead.
just based on my previous
Go ahead.
experience on the last 2 attempts. So can you remind me, where does MSBA get its funding?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so they, and Donna, correct me on this if I get it wrong. They get a couple pennies off of each gallon of gas that's sold. And that goes into their fund, and then they distribute the funds to support schools through the
I
process.
think it's actually any
Almost,
transaction.
almost.
Sorry.
It's 1 penny. It's 1 penny. It's one penny of the 6.25 cents on any tax. So we collectively, anytime you go and spend any money anywhere in the state, we're all paying into this MSBA, and we're benefiting ourselves and every other community.
And as we evolve to electric vehicles and other non-gas vehicles, is there any elements that?
I misspoke slightly. It's not just gas, it's all.
Okay.
It's through the legislature.
I'm just curious if we have a rate of diminishing return here. That's all I want to know. Okay.
It's constant.
You mind if I ask you just a couple quick questions?
Couple more, because I want to let people.
So these are going to sound like aesthetic questions, and they're not. They're really about financial implications. So on the upgrade and renovation, either the renovation building, taking the building and renovating it, or doing adding an addition and renovating it. Obviously, those are stretched out over time. Is there 2 things that I was just thinking about? Do they pose more risk financially because they're protracted over a longer period of time, and we might be exposed to other things like what we experienced during the pandemic with supply chain issues, stuff like that? And then I didn't see this, and this might have been tapped into the soft costs, and I might have not heard it, but would there be a need for temporary classrooms and other facilities that would accommodate the students while this construction is taking place?
So I'll take a quick crack at it, and if Donna wants to fill in, but look, we're here because we're trying to think about what the best return on investment is. And so there's a cost benefit to any of the investments that we're thinking about now or a year from now. Just a note, when we think about cost, there's the hard cost, the dollars and capital expenditures spent, and then there's the disruption in that bucket. And to your first question, the biggest risk is around the disruption. You see a 48-month as opposed to, 24 to 30-month construction period with the ad reno as compared to the new.
Mhm.
That is a best case scenario. So if that timeline expands, if there's delays, if there's supply chain disruption, then yes, you have some risk there, and in some order of magnitude, time is money. We did as a committee, and again, Donna can speak in more detail if you want it, but all of these plans think about keeping the kids in the high school. In the ad reno, they would have to move around, and they would, so you're talking about one or two classes of students could live their entire high school career in a construction project in that scenario. In the new buildings, those buildings are built adjacent to the high school, so it would be built, then they would be moved, and then demolition.
Like Taconic.
Temporary classrooms in, again, an order of magnitude or something like $3 to $4 million of additional costs. And so any scenario where we saw the need for bringing in trailers or temporary classrooms, we have already eliminated.
And then my last question was with the exception of the location of the parking lot, I just seem to recall in the previous projects, there was a lot of investment in time in traffic flow and egress. And what I see here in these examples, I don't see much of a change with respect to the entry point. I suspect that the accommodations that have been made to date have been an improvement so that it doesn't necessitate that, but I'm just curious if there's, are there costs there that we're not seeing?
Potentially. So the one, we've all acknowledged that the entrance and egress is less than ideal. And we're in separate conversations with the Department of Transportation now, like current conversations about how to address it. Some possibilities include running an internal or multiple internal driveways that exit and enter onto Monument Valley Road to take some of the traffic off of Route 7, particularly the traffic going south towards Great Barrington. Going north towards Stockbridge is pretty easy, but turning left and going south is hard. So that's an ongoing conversation.
Okay, anybody else?
I do.
Diane, please.
With the project, and as the school exists today, there are X number of students. I haven't looked at everything. With this new school, do you plan on within the same number of kids over the course of years? Do you think it will increase greatly, decrease? Where's your thinking on that?
I'm happy to talk to that. So part of the process with the state is to get, one of the first things they did with us is to solidify an enrollment number. And then that number is tied to all the reimbursements, all the calculations, everything tied to square footage. So that magic number is 485 students. And that's what the space is being built for.
Oh, okay.
Anybody else?
I could ask more, but
Let me just make a couple of comments, if I might. I unfortunately can't help myself sometimes. We're talking about a significant amount of money here.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, Stockbridge spends approximately a quarter of its annual budget on education. We have, out of approximately 1,100 students in the Berkshire Hills system, about 110 from Stockbridge, with 40 in the high school, okay? And I think when we go to the town meeting to present this, we need to be sure that we have covered all options, not only construction options, but there are other alternatives and options here. And, I don't want to name them be negative. I'm not negative, but from a pragmatic business standpoint, our taxpayers are aging. They're pressured by increased taxes, and it's going to be not an easy sell, okay, when you talk about what we're talking about. And we're talking also about a diminution of enrollment. Enrollment is projected to go down, okay, over the years. Now, we need to cover the bases with other non-construction options. Maybe we should revisit other affiliations again, okay? Maybe that's time, and we should be able to bring that to the public. B, is there a possibility to use existing facilities to replace the Monument High School? We've alluded to temporary facilities, but i.e., can we use Muddy Brook or Du Bois for other purposes and move things around a little bit to save money? The only point I'm making, and I don't really want to get into negative alternatives to the building project, but we really have to present the full story to our public. It really isn't, it really is incumbent upon us. And we will do the right job, and we will have the right response if we do that. And I think that's really my point. You know, let's do it thoroughly. And so we don't have to go back and forth in another 5 years, okay? Whatever the alternative might be.
If you'd indulge me, I think that the one other thing I'd say in the balance is, well, it is important to explore all the alternatives. We're also proposing something that our grandparents did, which is addressing the needs for the next 50 to 75 years. And as the three towns did quite elegantly with the elementary and middle school, they secured the funding and support to build those buildings 25 years ago, been in those buildings for 20 years, will likely get another 30 to 40 years out of those buildings. And they're great, and people walk into them and see them as effectively new. And then a nice thing is we recently retired the existing debt on those buildings. So,
But the question also, Peter, would be asked is, with a declining enrollment base, are we looking at this as an investment in the future to be the regional high school for Southern Berkshire? You don't have to answer that. Is that something we're looking for? You know, and basically, should we be making that investment at this point in time?
yeah. Well, and we, I'm not answering, but I'll sort of answer part of it. We invited them to merge districts with us, and they were very clear, with the exception of one town, maybe 1.5 towns, they were very clear what their thoughts were about that.
Can I ask a question of my colleagues? So unless I'm mistaken, the funding allocation is also different for a capital budget amongst the three
Yes.
towns versus the operating
Yes,
budget.
that's correct.
And that in some ways, the Stockbridge share is actually proportionally higher.
There are two separate line items.
I understand they're two separate items, but I believe the allocation is different. Am I incorrect on that?
Oh, you're right.
That's correct. Okay, I just want to, so it's a different allocation.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't mean like one's operating, I mean, the division of ownership or of costs is amongst the three towns, participating towns, is different for a capital budget versus the operating budget.
Well, it's also amortized over time.
No, I know.
You know, that spreads it out, but that's a whole separate issue, you know. We're not here at this point with any definitive cost. You know, we haven't got an alternative yet.
No, I'm just simply saying a capital budget is going to cost us, our capital budget, what we owe amongst the three towns is higher than what we would have in an operating budget, not just because it's a big project. I'm just simply saying if we owe hypothetically 20% in an operating budget, I believe we might be owing like 27 to 30% in a capital budget.
It depends, you know.
No,
I think that's it.
and we agreed to that town meeting.
We
Town meeting agreed to that.
Yes, I agree. I just.
Okay.
Sure, a couple other things that would be important to consider as contingent liabilities to the scenario that you talked through, and I think it's super important to walk down the best alternative investment discussion. But using rough numbers, if you take $40 million as your portion of a big project and you amortize it out over 30 years with no interest, you're talking somewhere in the magnitude of $1.3 million of annual debt service. If you take your 110 kids a year and you choice them out to a district that might charge $15,000 per kid, you're looking at somewhere around 1.6.
School choices.
I think
School choice is $10,000, as I understand.
No,
it.
it's,
No.
no.
No, it's
No,
not.
There's two things. So it's school choice is $5,000, but you can't, individual families choose to exercise school choice. If a town
As a
didn't,
vacancy.
if a town wasn't part of a school district and was a non-operating district, and it's very complicated to even become one. So when I was both the superintendent of Berkshire Hills and the Shaker Mountain Union, New Ashford was a non-operating district, and New Ashford had tuition agreements with Greylock to send their kids there. And the cost of that was $10,000+ a kid, which I think is what Steve was talking to. It's not called school choice, it's called a tuition agreement. But the point he's making is if you were to have if you could even get a tuition agreement with another community, and it might be very complicated to do, the cost of that might be the same as the cost of
Warwick, Massachusetts, it was more. It was $18,000 a year. I have that from the Department of Education as an example. So I think it's important to understand that there's a lot of assumptions built into what that alternate might look like, and it could be equally expensive or more for, I think, far less.
More of a reason, Stephen, to present the alternative.
Right.
And whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that the complete picture is there for the public.
And just touching on your first point, Jay, there isn't a viable option to move the high school to the elementary or the middle school. There's not enough space. The high school is far different from a layout perspective. You have the CVT, auto shop, all that, science labs. It's a bigger space, so those schools would not be compatible by any means to move the high school kids into, unfortunately.
I have one last point to that. I think that you have to consider the economic multiplier that happens when you keep the trades local. You ship all your kids off to other schools, they're gonna become a gainfully employed workforce in another town. When you build a workforce in a local town, there's an economic multiplier effect. Those plumbers and carpenters go out to dinner, they go to the movies, they take their friends out to the bar, and those dollars are spent locally. So I think you build the fabric of community and you build economic development when you invest in education.
Okay, I think this is a beginning conversation at this point, and I would leave it, if you're comfortable with it, that this conversation needs to evolve into more definitive alternatives, if you will. And obviously further meetings and discussion have to occur. It's critical. Patrick?
I had a couple of questions on just to confirm, there's no solar even with the ground source heat pumps and the VRF currently envisioned, or at least not in the current quotes?
The plan, and Donna can speak to this, is to build a building that's solar ready,
Right.
but to not
I heard that.
panels on first.
So my real question is, have you identified what the heat load is? So that if you don't do solar initially, what the impact on the operating cost is going to be by switching to electric versus leaving as fossil fuels versus just doing solar initially? I think that's a really important, because the operating costs are still the biggest part of the budget, even with the capital costs here. But understanding the impact on the operating costs of these various decisions is really, really important to making good decisions. And I hope that we're going to see more specific numbers on what those three breakouts are.
And this may not be widely known, Steve's aware of it, when you all were working on your thing. We're part of a large solar farm
Array.
connected to rising paper, so our electric rates already significantly subsidized through that, so some of the savings that one would typically contribute, we're already realizing, but we might be able to receive some of it.
And is the IRA you guys were referring to, like IRA direct pay, is that the same? The number that was at the bottom that we're not sure if we're gonna get it? Because there's a number of federal direct pay credits for some of these investments that I didn't see on your chart that are separate from Mass Save.
Correct, yes.
All right, I just want to
Yeah.
confirm that you're calling something different. Okay.
Yes, and if I could just add to the comments that Peter just made regarding the kind of operating costs or life cycle cost analysis. We have already done that, looking at the various options, of course, ground source heat pumps being the most energy efficient, right? You create using less energy, therefore lowering your costs. But we will also study and evaluate how much solar you might need to actually make this net zero on campus. And while you have agreements and arrangements with another PPA, power purchase agreement with another organization, you still have an opportunity to even take it a step further and generate more energy on site. And if you already have an agreement, then you could sell this, right? This could actually really help your operating budget.
I think we need to leave it at this point. And I would leave you with one point. Obviously, the whole issue of fuels is going to be a political issue with the administration. So we don't even know where that's going relative to funding and so forth. But at any rate, at this point, we thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll look forward to talking to you again. All right?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.